Welcome to the City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Courtney Nelson, president of City Club. For 100 years, City Club of Portland is where civic-minded people come together to make Portland and Oregon a better place for everyone to live, work, and explore. We're gathered at the Sentinel Hotel, along with all of you listening on OPB Radio or viewing on Portland Community Media or YouTube. The generous support of City Club's corporate and media partners enables us to put on the state's best civic programs week after week. Our media partner is Oregon Business Magazine, and our current Friday Forum sponsors are Avangrid Renewables, Airbnb, McKinley Irvin, AARP, and Uber. Please join me in showing our appreciation for them. Today, we're also really pleased to welcome into the room Civic Scholars. Our Civic Scholars is City Club's high school engagement program. The program aims to demystify leadership and advocacy for our youth. Here with us today are students from Park Rose High School. Welcome to Friday Forum. And now onto our program. As we approach Thanksgiving and a season with a tradition of giving, today's Friday Forum looks at how the millennial generation is engaging in philanthropy. I'd like to introduce our panel today. Nick Johnson is the Executive Director of Willamette Week's Give Guide. Nick also serves on the board of Willamette Light Brigade and Friends of the Noise Resource Council. Simone Wren, Partnership Manager for Social Venture Portland's Social Venture Partners Portland, sorry about that. SVP Portland is an organization that brings together a community of donors to invest in solving social problems. Simone runs SVP's Rising Leaders for Social Good program, which develops leaders focused on philanthropy and impact on the social sector. Paula Little is National Vice President of Development at Stand for Children. She's a member of SVP's Rising Leaders for Social Good program and an SVP board member. Moderating our discussion today is Rebecca Burrell, Director of Strategy and Development at Portland Community Media. Previously, she led community engagement at the Right Brain Initiative. She also founded Portland Emerging Arts Leaders and was the 2015 winner of Willamette Week Skidmore Prize, an award recognizing nonprofit leaders under the age of 36. Please welcome our panel to the stage today.
Good afternoon. Welcome to what I expect will be a really lively conversation about a very positive topic during these really uncertain political times. We're talking about millennials and their role in philanthropy. Our newest and largest generation has shown up to participate in social good. So I'm going to lay some context for the conversation. And to do that, I'm going to hurl a string of statistics at you. In 2010, there were an estimated 2.3 million nonprofits in the United States, according to the Nonprofit Almanac, about 1.6 million of whom were incorporated with the IRS. That's an increase of 24% in just 10 years from the year 2000. So we know that the nonprofit sector is rapidly growing. We also know that individual donations make up more than 70% of all fundraising for nonprofits. In fact, charitable giving exceeded $373 billion in 2015. That's billion with a B. $373 billion from individuals just in 2015, which is the highest sum in history. And that even takes inflation into account. So we know that individuals play the most major role in helping nonprofits stay afloat to do the good work that they do. So we're here today to talk about the role of millennials in that philanthropic giving. Everyone on this panel is both a millennial who gives donations to nonprofits, as well as an expert in engaging other millennials to give. We're going to look at a couple of really different methods of engaging millennials in philanthropy through both the Willamette Week Give Guide, as well as the Rising Leaders program at Social Venture Partners Portland. So let's talk a little bit about who millennials are. Millennials are the largest generation in America, currently at about 80 million people, according to the 2014 Millennial Impact Report, which is a report that I recommend you all read. They are generally identified as having been born between 1980 and 2000. So on the older end, they're about 35 or 36. On the younger end, they're about 15 or 16. So in any conversation about millennials, it's important to note that we're talking about people who are both pushing 40 and those that are still in high school, and all of the range of life experiences that come in between. So today, we're going to probably make a wide variety of vast generalizations about a really diverse group of people. So I just first want to acknowledge that. And acknowledge that each of us are going to present our own limited perspectives, and they are limited perspectives. So also want to mention from the Millennial Impact Report, 87% of millennials donated money to a nonprofit in 2014. 47% served as volunteers. So for anyone who still worries about whether millennials will step in to follow the legacy of civic engagement, I just want to lay to rest right now that this generation has been statistically proven to care about what's happening in the world and to take action upon that. So for this conversation, we're going to try a new format, and we're just going to have to see how it goes. I'm going to first speak with Nick Johnson of the Willamette Week, and then I'm literally just going to pivot in my chair and talk to these folks about the program at Social Venture Partners Portland. So Simone and Paula, please take notes in case Nick says anything that you feel like you want to refer to later. So let's dig in.
Hi, Rebecca.
So Nick, you manage the Willamette Week Give Guide. How many years have you been? How many years have you been managing that project?
I'm in the midst of my 5th campaign right now.
Can you talk a little bit about how that program started and why?
The program started in 2004. The owners of Willamette Week, both Richard Meeker and Mark Zussman, wanted to create programs that would engage younger people in Portland in, get them more civically engaged. And so Mark started Candidates Gone Wild, which is a kind of silly candidates forum as a way to get people kind of interested in voting. And then Richard started the Willamette Week Give Guide. And in 2004, we published a list of 20 nonprofits in the paper and asked our readers to mail in checks, and we raised a little bit over $22,000. And they kind of didn't even expect that much money to come in. And then over the course of those first few years, a website was designed, and some other programs were incorporated into Give Guide, and then eventually, right around 2000, I think it was 2009 or 10, it raised $1 million. And so all of a sudden, Willamette Week had this much larger program on its hands than they anticipated. And so in 2012, I started as the kind of first full-time director for Give Guide, just because that's a lot of money, and you want to manage that well and do that right, and you don't want to mess it up, because then you have a lot of problems on your hands. So, yeah.
So from your perspective, what was the reason that they chose to focus specifically on young donors?
There is a lot of studies that show that if young people get involved in giving younger in life, specifically in their early 20s, they will then give for the rest of their life. And so we wanted to target those readers of Willamette Week and compel them to get in the habit so that they would continue doing that, and they would start saving money, maybe start planning, and probably grow the amount of giving that they would do over the course of their life.
So this is a Give Guide, and I believe somewhere in this room there is a stack of Give Guides. No.
I actually forgot to bring them.
Okay. You can.
I'm a millennial. I'm more digitally focused, but we have print guides you can find them at New Seasons, but if you go to giveguide.org, you can see all the same information online, and I wish I had brought those for all of you. I'm not doing my job.
I promise I didn't mean to call you out. I did pick this up at a newsstand yesterday, so they are still laying around at various Willamette Week stations. So keep your eyes out for these. So let's say I find myself upon one of these guides. What do I do? How does it work?
So this year we have 141 nonprofits organized into 8 categories: animals, civil and human rights, community, creative expression, education, environment, health, and human services. And give or take, except for the animals category, there are about 20 organizations in each. And these organizations vary from all volunteer-run or nonprofits to large institutions like the Oregon Food Bank or Planned Parenthood. And you know, a lot of people will come to Give Guide because one nonprofit that they're already connected to will tell them, hey, we want you to give through Give Guide. And what our hope is that when you come to giveguide.org or you pick up the guide, that you're introduced to other organizations that you might not have thought you wanted to support, but they reflect maybe some values that you care deeply about. And so what we're able to do is give you an opportunity to give to all those organizations at once and make it easy and fairly seamless.
Remind us, what is your goal for fundraising this year?
We have two goals this year. One is to raise $3.6 million by New Year's Eve at the stroke of midnight. And then this year we also wanted to set a goal of 10,000 unique donors. And last year we had a little under 9,000, and so I randomly just picked 10,000 because it sounded good. But the intent behind that was, as digitally focused as this is and how much we obsess about Facebook and Twitter and email, it's really hard to track and gauge how effective those tools are in bringing in gifts. And so I wanted to find a more concrete kind of grassroots way of getting people to give. And so I said, well, that's 70 people per organization. So if every nonprofit could find 70 people in Portland, we would reach 10,000 donors. And of course, we have a lot more people in the metro area who are capable of giving. So I don't think it's an unreasonable goal, but I wanted to kind of break it down into a more simple challenge, if you will.
Have you ever not made your goal?
We have so far in my 5 years surpassed the goals that we've set for fundraising. So.
Okay, Portland, help him get there.
Yeah.
So you put a big emphasis, and to varying degrees over the years, on the asset of providing tangible incentives for folks to give, coupons to local businesses, even in some cases, you're entered into a raffle for a really large gift. Can you tell us more about how that feeds into the process and what you've learned about whether that does or does not motivate people to participate?
Anyone who gives, we feel like it's important that they're acknowledged for their gift, and we want to make those thank you items fairly fun. And so for people who give $10, we have like a special coupon pack through the Chinook Book mobile app. If you give a little bit more, we have thank you bags that volunteers deliver to our donors. And then if you give a significant amount, the owners of our paper, Mark and Richard, will drive around the whole metro area for the next 3 weeks, delivering about 150 thank you bags to people. And those items, specifically the coupons, people are really excited about, but because we can track that information, we find that most people don't end up using them. Like, not even 98% of the coupons get redeemed. And so I think a lot of the incentive focus became a much bigger deal when sites like Kickstarter and Indiegogo were launched, because those have very built-in incentive programs. We're not going to get rid of them, but I don't think I personally, with what I have seen, don't think they drive giving as much. However, yesterday we did a big prize package, partnered with the Portland Thorns and the Timbers with like a lot of tickets and swag and whatnot, and about $70,000 was donated, which is pretty significant for one day this early in the campaign. And last week we did one with Powell's, and about $160,000 was donated. So those days, for whatever reason, are very popular, and I think people get excited to maybe win the prize, but I think it's fun to be a part of a day when a lot of money is being donated, because it kind of, you feel like you're contributing to this bigger cause.
Even knowing that most donors aren't redeeming their prizes, how can you know, have you seen through your survey processes that it actually is something that is exciting people about giving? I mean, what role does that play in making the decision to actually act upon making a donation?
Do you clarify that? So
we know people aren't so excited about the incentives that they're actually cashing them in. Yeah. But do we have any evidence that it is truly motivating people to make that gift?
I mean, anecdotally, people email me all the time asking when they can get them. We encourage the nonprofits to also provide their own incentives, which I think donors are more excited about. And those are not just important as a way to thank donors, but our business community in Portland is incredibly generous. And I think a lot of the success in GiveGuide is born from how much the businesses of Portland get behind GiveGuide campaigns, and they provide really, I would say, better incentives for donors directly to specific nonprofits. They provide matching gifts, they provide parties, and so I think part of the reason why we encourage the incentives is to facilitate and encourage more of the kind of the business partnerships. And last year we had over 300 businesses who supported GiveGuide in one form or another.
If you're tuning in on OPB, you're listening to City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Rebecca Burrell of Portland Community Media. I'm joined by Nick Johnson, Executive Director of the Willamette Week GiveGuide, and we're talking today about millennials and philanthropy and specifically how to engage them through the Willamette Week GiveGuide. So Nick Johnson, last year in 2015, what proportion of GiveGuide participants were under the age of 36?
30%.
So pretty much right on track with the proportion of humans on the planet who are millennials. So how can you reflect upon the design of this program as a way to engage millennials, but it's actually been really exciting for a lot of people who aren't millennials. How do you make sense of that, and does it give you any sense about how, in general, philanthropy might be changing?
I think the success, there's a few reasons that are, I think, pretty significant. One, again, is how easy we make giving. You don't have to go to, at the end of the year, you don't have to go to 10 different websites to give. So that kind of in a very technical way. I think another reason why it's so successful is that we provide nonprofits with the opportunity to work together on their year-end campaigns, and we have sourced a lot of feedback over the last 5 or 6 years, where at the beginning of a campaign I do a big meeting. Some people in this room come to that meeting, and then at the end of the campaign we do another one, and we just cycle through a lot of critical feedback. And then I try to, over the course of a year, see how much of that I can incorporate to empower the nonprofits to do as best as they can. And they get to share ideas, and if you have a lot of smaller nonprofits that participate don't have individual giving programs before they join GiveGuide, and so we're able to provide them in essence a kind of like a professional development opportunity where older, more established nonprofits are in rooms with younger, smaller ones, and they get to share ideas, and we kind of facilitate that. And so I think that that's a lot of kind of where this success has been born from. I don't think that I have brought a lot of good ideas to GiveGuide. I think the nonprofits that participate in Portland bring the good ideas, and I do the best I can at making them a reality within the resources that I have. So
you touched on a little bit earlier the notion of Kickstarter and sort of crowdfunding opportunities. Do you think those modules have had any impact on millennials' relationship to philanthropy in a general sense? This just if you have a gut feeling about that.
I think back to even before Kickstarter, which started in 2009. My first experience with crowdfunding was when Howard Dean ran for president in 2003, and he would put these baseball bats up on his website, and he would say, we want to raise $20,000 before the end of the day, and then the baseball bat would have 20K, and over the day they would update it, and it was kind of like addicting to go keep refreshing the website to see the money kind of go up and up and up and see if he would hit his goal, and he always did. And so I think that that element of there's something very engaging about watching a goal get set, and then over the course of a week or however long for us, 2 months, watching that ticker slowly move. So I think that that is being ingrained in way more minds than it probably would have been if Kickstarter didn't exist. So I think that definitely plays a huge role. That's like my gut intuition. I think it's just also making it more normal for most people to consider making a gift digitally online to a cause that they care about, and it is facilitating that kind of, it's not passing the hat in a group of people now. It's setting, if it's a small business or it's a project or if it's an artist, we're constantly bombarded with these more community-driven crowdfunding campaigns. And so I think it just helps make it more normal for people to consider supporting.
So we have a lot of political change happening in the nation right now. It's making me think a lot about the role of nonprofits in building communities and contributing to change. I'm going to ask you a really big question, and so just do the best you can. What do you think is the role of nonprofits in making change, either on the local or the global level or national?
I think, well, I would speak more locally right now, but just to, get it out there, a lot of people in the last week have expressed a sense of helplessness over what has occurred, and there's obviously a lot of divisiveness in our current political climate, and what reassures me is that I have, for the last 5 years, worked with a huge network of institutions that are every day, a week and a half ago before the election and the day after the election, confronting very difficult issues. But these are institutions that exist with staff and volunteers and boards, and they are doing the work, and they have experience with how to confront these challenges. And they were, nonprofits, you're constantly under duress trying to resolve something, and with the knowledge that you might never actually reach that endpoint. And so our nonprofit community is the best equipped to fight these challenges, because they know what it's like to be up against pretty hard odds, and the odds just got a lot harder for a lot of them. But I feel lucky that we have these groups, and not just a few, but again, you said however millions in the country, and then in Portland alone, there's the numbers differ, but it's somewhere between 4,000 and 10,000 based upon how active they are. So we have this pretty fantastic network here, and we have to support them, maybe more than we have been.
So if anyone out there wants to contribute to one of the 141 nonprofits that are part of the Give Guide this year, how can they find you online?
Giveguide.org.
What's the deadline?
December 31st at midnight.
Great.
Don't wait. Don't crash the website. That hasn't happened yet, thankfully.
Thanks for talking, Nick.
Thank you.
We will turn back to you at the Q&A period.
Perfect.
So this is Nick Johnson, Executive Director of the Willamette Week Give Guide. I'm now making my pivot to talk to Simone Wren, Partnership Manager at Social Venture Partners Portland, and Paula Little, Vice President of Development at Stand for Children. So we are talking to both of you because you both have a connection to the Rising Leaders for Social Good program at Social Venture Partners Portland. Simone, you manage this program, and in fact, were instrumental in building the program in the first place. I think it's really easy to stereotype millennials as smartphone-obsessed drones. So I'm really excited to talk about a totally different type of model for engaging millennials that has nothing to do with the internet. But before I do that, want to remind you that if you're tuning in on OPB, you're listening to City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Rebecca Burrell of Portland Community Media. I'm talking to Paula Little, Vice President of Development at Stand for Children, and Simone Wren, Partnership Manager at Social Venture Partners Portland, and we're talking about millennials and philanthropy. So Simone, how would you describe what is Social Venture Partners' approach to cultivating philanthropy, and how does that translate to the Rising Leaders program?
So Social Venture Partners is a global network in 40 cities around the world. We are a community of donors that invest in nonprofits the same way a venture capitalist might invest in a startup, except we are not looking simply for profits, but we are looking also for social impact and community prosperity. The model that we practice is called venture philanthropy, and it leverages our donors' time talent as well as their money. So we call it engaged philanthropy because our philanthropists are literally showing up every single day in our office to do work with the nonprofits that we're invested in. And the Rising Leaders program is a program out of Social Venture Partners Portland that works with young professionals to develop new leaders for philanthropy and for the nonprofit sector. So our hope is that the people in the program are making connections with other like-minded young professionals who want to make change in the world and helping them be equipped to be leaders in the sector, whether that's on a board, on a high-level volunteer committee, or taking on a staff position at a nonprofit.
Great. So Paula Little, in addition to leading fundraising at Stand for Children National, you are a participant in the Rising Leaders program. Can you talk a little bit about how the program is structured on sort of a daily or monthly basis?
Certainly. So Rising Leaders programs begins in January. They're actually taking applications now if anyone's interested in joining this incredible group of individuals. It's for young professionals, 20s and 30s. I think our cohort had about 17 individuals, Simone? Does that sound right? 17 individuals who meet monthly to learn about philanthropy. Not just philanthropy, but what can you do in your community as a citizen, as a leader. Every month you hear from a community leader, individuals from all walks of life, all backgrounds, various business sectors, nonprofit sectors, and you learn everything from how to be a board member to interesting concepts like journey mapping and systems design thinking and interesting creative tools that you can use to go out into the community and have an impact, be empowered and make a difference. And it's an incredible group. The last 12 months, towards the very end, I'd say the last quarter, you meet in teams and you work on a special project that can actually be implemented by SVP, the organization, its board, and its partners in the community. So at the end, not only do you graduate with a toolbox of resources, but you've actually worked on a project that's going to be implemented and make change.
So what motivated you to apply for the program based on where you're at in your professional or personal life?
Certainly. So for me, it was about collective impact. This thought that there are hundreds of individuals, partners, who pull together their time, talent, and treasure and put it into the community for children, for families, for education. That's one of my passions. And so the idea of coming together, working with a cohort of like-minded individuals really spoke volumes to me, and that's why I joined.
Has being part of the program changed the way you think about your work at Stand for Children in any way?
It does. When I spoke a little bit earlier about the various sessions that were provided to us, the education, the learning, again, I learned from individuals from all walks of life, and from the nonprofit perspective, I've got my usual tricks and trades as a development professional, but to hear from someone from Intel talk about journey mapping or systems design, I walked away with tools saying, I can really use this to engage my community, to engage my constituents. And what I learned above all is that nonprofits really need to start thinking about creative approaches to engage our communities, especially the younger generation. It's something that we want, it's something that we demand. Be creative, be out of the box, meet us where we're at, and utilize some of these tools.
Simone Wren, can you speak a little bit more about how this program was researched and really customized for young folks in the professional world versus the other programs that you provide at Social Venture Partners?
Mm-hmm. This program is going into its third year in Portland, and before we started it, we did 6 to 9 months of market research because we have no interest in starting a program where there is no need for one. So we got several focus groups of young professionals together to to talk about what would be interesting to them, what tools they felt like they needed to start getting engaged in leadership in the nonprofit sector. What type of engagement would be most interesting to them? Did it look like a classroom? Did it look like an affiliation? Did it look like discussion groups? So the program is a direct reflection of what we heard in those focus groups. And many people from the focus groups ended up joining the program. But their directive to us was really that they wanted an opportunity for learning. I think a lot of us feel comfortable in a classroom setting. It's really familiar, so it looks a little bit like that. There's also a lot of opportunity for networking and for deep connection between the people in the program. So they were really interested in creating deep connections between one another and getting connected to people who they wouldn't normally interact with. So you've got people who are working in the juvenile justice system, talking to people who work at Cambia Health Solutions, talking to people who run strategic marketing firms. So it's a really wide array of professions in the group.
So recognizing that you two are not average donors in the sense that you actually work within philanthropy, yet as millennial donors, what motivates you to give, and how do you make decisions about what organizations you give to?
So I feel very fortunate in this sense because I spend all day inside of an organization that puts a lot of thought into where the money of where our donors' contributions are going. So we look at organizations that serve communities that are doing a large volume of work and are generally underfunded, typically communities of color, communities in poverty, and communities that serve English language learners. So I look for organizations that are led by people from those communities. I think that the solution for any particular community can come from that community. So I really look for those sorts of organizations. I look for visionary leaders in the organizations that I contribute to. And I'm really trying to make sure that when I give, I find something that's really important to me, and I aggregate my gifts and give in the biggest way that I can. Obviously, there are those things that pull on my heartstrings, and I'm giving in the moment. But I am trying to be more strategic about my philanthropy and really digging in deep where I want to make an impact.
Paula, anything to add to that?
I think just speaking on what Simone added, it really again goes back to that word of impact. Where is my dollar going to have the most impact, and what nonprofit is doing that, which is why I gravitated to social venture partners. And then for me, it's also about the communication. How is this organization communicating with me? So after I get that dollar, do I get an instant thank you? There's something there about instant gratification there. And then what are the stories that they share? A lot of it is about the rich storytelling that tells me what my dollar did for that organization and for the community it serves. And the more I get those stories, the more I'm compelled to give and increase my giving to that organization.
If you're tuning in on OPB, you're listening to City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Rebecca Burrell of Portland Community Media. I am joined now by Paula Little, Vice President of Development at Stand for Children, and Simone Wren, Partnership Manager at Social Venture Partners Portland. And we're talking today about millennials and philanthropy, and specifically right now, what motivates these folks when they make their own choices about charitable giving. So do you feel like your approach to making contributions to nonprofits is typical of those that you work with in the philanthropy field? Do you feel like it's a uniquely generational approach? How do you make sense of whether you fit into some of the trends that we're seeing for millennial giving habits?
I know that like Nick said, people tend to make decisions about their lifelong philanthropy pretty early in life, and they stick in those issue areas. So I feel like in that sense, I'm still imprinting, which I suppose is typical. I have a hard time answering this question because our whole model is built on engaging people in this really specific, deep way. But I feel like the social venture partners model is really well set up to appeal to millennials because we have this dual focus on giving your money and also giving your time, which has been proven to be one of the things that millennials feel really strongly about. Typically, a millennial likes to engage with a nonprofit through volunteering first, and the donations will follow.
So, anything from you on that, Paula? A big question, I know.
It is a big question. You know, one of the ways that millennials are giving now more and more is actually obviously online, a good online platform. I like to scroll through various nonprofits and how they set up their donation page, more so because I'm also a development professional, so I'm scoping out how other people are doing it as well. But that experience online doesn't mean that I'm not wanting to be disconnected. I want the same amount of energy and passion and the opportunity to take action in the palm of my hand on a 4-inch screen. So I think nonprofits really need to focus on what is your online platform and how are you using it to engage this generation. It's not just about slapping a donate now button on the page. First of all, as a side note, millennials like the word invest, not donate. So I like to invest my money. But I also want to be able to take action. Take action on behalf of your organization. And if you want the cherry on top, the perfect trifecta, you actually also want to provide an opportunity for me to challenge my friends to do the same. Peer pressure is definitely a tool used for this generation, whether we like it or not. Depends on where you're sitting at. But your peers, you go to your peers, you listen to your peers, and they talk about this great nonprofit, and they might go online and Facebook and check it out, and they end up giving as well. So you've got this combination of giving, taking action, and being able to challenge others to do the same. And so you've got this generation that many people think is disengaged, but really when you engage them, you have a donor, you've created an advocate, and now you've created a fundraiser. And what nonprofit wouldn't want that? And so it all starts with how you engage that individual, and then from there you can go much more into it.
Thank you. Simone, you have a really unique perspective on philanthropy because in your work, you're using a pretty traditional business model to make investments in the social space. So what other ways do you see millennials attempting to make an impact on social change beyond simply investing in nonprofits?
Ooh, I love this question. So full disclosure, we had some conversations about this ahead of time because it felt like something important that we wanted to get into today. I keep thinking that one of the ways that I think of philanthropy is pretty fluid. I don't think about it as being in this box of when I write my check to this organization, I am a philanthropist. I think about philanthropy as being part of a lot of the things that I do in my life. I think about it as part of my purchasing decisions, as part of my decisions about where I'm volunteering and where I am giving. So I'm really interested in the growth of the social entrepreneurship and triple bottom line business sector as part of the way that I think millennials are going to make an impact in social change. So, yeah, did I miss a part of your question?
No, I think you nailed it. I think that's consistent with what we see in research, that millennials want to see social significance in everything they do, in the workplace, in their purchases, in every aspect of life, which is phenomenal. I now want to open up a question to all three of you. So, welcome back, Nick. So, We are a week post a really big presidential election. Emotions are still very high. How do you all see philanthropy? So have you already seen philanthropy change post-election? Do you expect to see it change? Nick Johnson, can we start with you?
There are some interesting anecdotes from the last week and a half about giving skyrocketing to the ACLU. They put an ad in the Washington Post, and so that's a very activist way to raise money. Even though they're going to continue doing what they do, Planned Parenthood as well has seen a huge spike in giving, and so maybe in this more activist state, certain causes might generate more interest than they have in the past, or people who have been more casually connected. And if we're talking about philanthropy more broadly than just giving money, again, like I said earlier, there are these institutions that already exist that people can now look to directly. And if they don't need their help, then they, at least to feel like they're doing something, can probably engage more. I'm talking very vaguely about things. Yeah.
I'll ask you a more specific question. Have you seen any unusual spikes in giving post-election through the Give Guide?
Yes, we did. Leading up to the Give Guide, it was very slow. And then not the day after the election, but last Thursday, so for the last week, it has been more robust. And even last weekend, we had a lot of giving, which doesn't usually happen early in November. So we'll see if it keeps up, if people's attention stays focused. That's always an issue now with how immediate things become with social media. There's always a new story, a new thing to do, a new thing to give money to. So I'm interested to see how this plays out. I mean, not just this year, but even next year. Completely different landscape next year with how worried people are about things. So
we have just a couple minutes before we need to go to Q&A. Paula or Simone, would you like to comment on that question? So in this post-election life, have you seen philanthropy change in your work, or do you expect to see it change?
I can say that in the past week and a half, I've gotten more emails from people in my own network than I ever have before saying, "Can you tell me what to do? Tell me how I can engage. Tell me which organizations you think are making the most impact." And that part's been really lovely, actually, because sometimes I spend a lot of time around philanthropists, but that's not necessarily what all of the people in my network do. So I'm seeing a lot of the people who work in the private sector reaching out to me to ask how they can get involved. And I know that the data says that millennials really look at the nonprofit sector as the way that they will make change in the world, whereas boomers really looked at the government as the way they wanted to make change. So I think that we'll see a lot of engagement in philanthropy in these next few years, where the social sector is stepping in to fill the gap between what government and the private sector are doing.
Paula?
I agree with both Nick and Simone. Definitely a spike. I think there's a sudden sense of urgency that has occurred in people, not only on the philanthropy side of people giving, but on the nonprofit side as well, as in terms of engaging the community, getting messages out, asking people to take action. That certainly has spiked. I know it has at Stand. But at the end of the day, I really do hope that there's some legs to this, that there's, someone starts to commit by becoming a volunteer. I do hope that lasts beyond into the new year and the next year and the next year. So I'm hoping it's not a one-time thing. I really do hope that it continues on.
So if you're just tuning in on OPB, you're listening to City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Rebecca Burrell from Portland Community Media, and I'm joined by Nick Johnson, Executive Director of the Willamette Week Give Guide. Simone Wren, Partnership Manager at Social Venture Partners Portland, and Paula Little, Vice President of Development at Stand for Children. We are now going to open this up for a Q&A. If you've written a question on an index card, please hold it high for staff to collect. I will read at least one index card question during the Q&A. We invite City Club members to ask their questions at the microphone. Asking questions at the Friday Forum microphone is a benefit of City Club membership, and membership is open to everyone. Please identify yourself as a City Club member and ask one question in 30 seconds or less.
Hi, my name is Sarah Wilson. I'm a civic scholar from Park Rose High School, and my question is, what is the best way younger millennials without easy access to money can get involved with nonprofit organizations or charities?
Volunteer. That's the best. It's the best way. And I know a lot of schools have required volunteer hours, but I would say make it a cause that you really want to go to, not just to fill out a requirement, which is kind of how I did it. Full disclosure, in high school, and I think you'll find way more value in it, and it might help kind of reshape the kind of direction of your life if you volunteer somewhere that really speaks to you.
Anything else to add from the two of you? Okay. Next question.
Hi, Anthony Petchel, City Club member. For full disclosure, I'm a fundraising professional myself, and I work for Reach Community Development. My question is around how much energy should we as nonprofits be putting towards millennial donors right now, and what are the best cost-effective ways that you've seen, given that the generation is currently the most indebted through student loans, most underemployed right now, and we have budgets that we need to fill in this current day and age to meet our mission. So if you have some good cost-effective ways that you've seen work, that would be helpful.
Take a stab, maybe we can share. I will say, while we may be in debt now, I just read a report where we're about to inherit, we're the beneficiaries of about $41 trillion. So that's something to think of in the long run. I think another survey statistic is that over 52% of millennials said that they would be willing to give online as monthly sustainers. So right now our giving may be small, but if you ask me for $10 a month for 12 months, and then you continue to increase that to $20 a month, then to $30 a month, to $50 a month, you've created a very loyal donor who will be with you for a very long time. And that vehicle is pretty inexpensive to connect with people online and to engage them. It doesn't cost a lot, and there's some creative ways to do it. And in the long term, in terms of sustainability and loyal donors, it's definitely a generation you want to tap into.
Through Give Guide, what I've learned and encouraged nonprofits is one specific thing that a lot of them like to do is throw events to celebrate the kickoff of their Give Guide. And I really try to gear them away from doing something that's on par with what a gala might be like, because those are huge investments, and there have been nonprofits that expend tons of money for we'll throw a party for millennials or whatever, 35 and under, and a lot of those people will come because the party's free or really nice or has free booze or whatever. And what I've tried to encourage the nonprofits to do is to do a smaller scale outreach event that makes those people feel important and connected, but doesn't break the bank. And a lot of nonprofits also will do kind of a two-tiered system to those events where there's a smaller kind of expense to get into that event. Maybe it's a later arrival or whatever, just to kind of, again, not expend too much money on people who aren't ready to give you a lot, but you do want to make that gesture and get them connected on a deeper level if possible.
I'd like to read a question submitted on one of the cards that I like. So this is open to any of the panelists. When you discuss giving with millennials who are not in the habit of giving, what language do you use to frame the discussion to sway them to give, especially when talking to friends in a non-professional setting? But I would say feel free to comment in a professional setting as well, if that helps.
I I've heard this reflected back from the Rising Leaders in our program, that one of the reasons that they joined the Rising Leaders for Social Good program is that they saw dual benefit. So they know that their dollars are going to a pool of investment that's much greater than what they could give. But there's also this opportunity for professional networking and learning. So I don't think it's irresponsible or wrong to talk about philanthropy as something that can have impact in your own life, beyond the impact that you get from giving and feeling really connected to a cause, which cannot be understated. But there are these professional development and networking opportunities that you should feel free to talk about and take advantage of.
Debbie Kay, City Club member. Many millennials have moved to Portland in the last bunch of years. Many of those people, therefore, are transplants who do not have local roots from being raised here. There's also significant turnover in this population. How do you perceive that this affects how the nonprofits engage with the millennials?
Not to take up too much airtime here, but I've actually seen that the Rising Leaders for Social Good program is one way that people who are new to town are making connections in the city. They're using it as a way to meet people who they think of as their people, a way to learn about nonprofits that might be in line with their values. So I've seen it as a really beneficial thing because you've got new people who are new to town who aren't settled into patterns and are just willing to dig in and learn and get engaged.
Hi, my name is Matthew Gibson, a City Club member as of yesterday. Fundraising for large constituent events that rely on volunteer fundraisers like walks and runs and rides has trended down the last few years. Do you see millennials reversing that trend?
I would say I don't know. But we've seen a slow uptick in giving online again, and maybe that's because it's easy. And it sounds critical, but showing up for a walk is more involved than giving online. But I don't know if there's I don't have any definitive data to back up if that's going to continue downward trend or not. But convenience is big, and our habits of our digital devices, for better or worse.
Ted Kay, City Club member. I want to remind everybody that City Club membership itself is tax deductible, and City Club memberships make great gifts. My question for each of you, all four of you represent nonprofit organizations, and I apologize that it's a hypothetical question. If someone were to write each of your organizations a check for $100,000, how would you spend that money in the next year?
Well, I only serve on the board of two nonprofits, but if it were to be given to Give Guide, I would use it as a way to match the first amounts of gifts through Give Guide, either from all donors or all donors 35 and under, as a way to spur giving from younger people. And we have actually a competition that we do every year to spur giving from younger donors, where we give in each category a cash prize of $1,500 to the nonprofit with those most donors, and it is a big point of pride for that nonprofit to win. So that's what I would probably use the money for, to open that up even more.
So at Stand for Children, our mission is to ensure that every child, no matter what background they come from, has access to quality education. They can graduate from high school, go to college, or have access to college and career training. And so for us, it's really about using that gift to make sure that that is going to happen here in our community. Your gift would essentially be a gift that can leave a legacy for the next generation. And so for us to be able to work together across the board on what that means and what that takes, that's what that gift would go for.
This is great. We ask this question to the nonprofits that we work with a lot, and to ourselves as well. So we have decided that in the next year we will continue to invest in the nonprofits that we're invested in. We want to go deeper with them. We want them to know that they've got a champion for many years in social venture partners. So we invest long term. So a lot of the money would go towards that. We're also investing in doing a lot of internal work to look at the structures in SVP that can contribute negatively to a lack of equity, diversity, and inclusion in our work, and how we dismantle those structures. So we've focused some money on that as well.
So we have time for maybe a couple more questions.
Kurt Wavering, member. Nick, I notice you and others talking about non-monetary ways to get involved, volunteering. And I just want to throw out a few that I've experienced and know about, and maybe you could add to it. One is, for example, coaching youth soccer. Another is reading to kids. There's a program in town called Start Making a Reader Today, in which you can volunteer 1 hour a week, and it has personal benefit. You connect with kids, and it helps the kids. And if you have outdoor interests, there's all kinds of programs to get kids out into the wilderness, which we've got lots of it. So I'm wondering if you could add to that list of kind of specific ways people can use their talent to get involved.
One specific anecdote for me was shortly out of college, the economic downturn occurred, and so I was basically underemployed and desperate for real experience and real work and something that was more engaging, and joined a board of an all-volunteer run organization named PDX Pop Now. And to young people who want those leadership opportunities, they are there for them. And at some point, volunteering is helpful, but this was on a whole other scale, and it was an incredibly valuable experience, and it was a way to kind of stay engaged when the jobs just weren't there. And I think that I'm very thankful for that opportunity. So I would encourage any young person who's ready to do even more to consider finding a board and get on it and see what you get out of it.
One last question.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
My name is Eli Bravehawk, and I'm part of Civic Scholars. And as a high school student, how can I experience the business aspect of philanthropy?
Can you clarify maybe what you mean when you say the business aspect of philanthropy?
Like in the sense of not just volunteering, but being able to be cooperated in the idea of building a revenue to help others.
Are you talking a little bit about something like social entrepreneurship, where you've got a company that's contributing to social change in some way?
No, yeah, like things like that would involve like students at a young age to get more involved into just volunteering or just donating money and things like that.
So you'd like to help with fundraising specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that okay? I can't see very. There's a lot of
I tend to think a really good way to get involved in fundraising early on is to volunteer for events. It's usually a pretty good entry point into the development profession. So you put in your time doing events, and little by little you can work into the development profession.
I guarantee you, if you want to throw a fundraising event for any nonprofit, they will almost never tell you no. Go for it. Be bold. Simone Wren, if people want to be part of the Rising Leaders for Social Good program, how can they get involved?
We are currently taking applications for the Rising Leaders for Social Good program. So we have materials here. I'm happy to talk to anyone here. You can go to our website, svpportland.org. That's 2 Ps. And you can also become a partner if the Rising Leaders program is not right for you. So check out our website, svpportland.org.
Thank you. Thank you to our great panel today. I hope you're all inspired to go check out the Give Guide and contribute during the season of giving. If this program has inspired you to join City Club, you can do so at the registration table at the back. I'm Courtney Nelson, President of City Club. Please join me in thanking our guests, and a special thank to Kurt Webbering of the Friday Forum Committee who produced our program today. We're adjourned.